Afternoon, everybody, and welcome. My name is Richard Gilman. I work at a company called SEAC here in Bangkok. For those of you that are joining from another country this afternoon, welcome to this live webinar, which is a practitioner's guide to enterprise agile coaching, and is brought to you by SEAC, by MAQE, also from Bangkok, and by Adventures with Agile. I think some of you, well, those of you joining from Thailand, will know a little bit about SEAC, my company, but for those that aren't, SEAC is a Bangkok-based education company, and our mission is to empower lives through learning. For the last 30 years, we've anticipated the next critical business trends and then worked to find the best global solutions and bring those and contextualize them for companies in Thailand and the wider Southeast Asia region. Building agile organizations is one of the most common challenges facing our clients, something that is probably the #1 challenge that we get asked about by our clients these days. And it's one of the reasons why we're so excited to be here today and to learn from Simon. Andreas is also joining us from MAQE, based here in Bangkok. So Andreas, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about MAQE while we're on this slide?
Sure. MAQE is a one part strategic design firm, one part technology company, and we help organizations sell more online, essentially. About 10 years running, based here in Bangkok and Khon Kaen, and we have a keen interest in new and better ways of working, something that we've experimented with a lot. So on the one hand, we are a professional services firm. We help companies build technology, build digital products. But the reason why we're here today is because we have this keen interest in the future of work, if you will. And I'll explain more in a little bit, but we think that agile coaching will be a key part of that.
Okay, thanks, Andreas. And our main speaker today in this webinar is obviously Simon Powers from Adventures with Agile. Simon, do you want to give us a little introduction to Adventures with Agile?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. So Adventures with Agile is about 10 years old now and has really been riding the wave of the global change that we're seeing in businesses to upgrade really to better working places for people working in the business and to deal with the complex changes which we're seeing in our markets and in our societies. So AWA helps individuals really to navigate that change and to upskill to have the necessary capabilities to help organizations to upgrade. We also help organizations directly by going in and helping with culture changes, structure changes, anything to do with coaching, leadership, anything really that helps organizations grow and be better places to work. And mostly we've been focusing on agility, helping organizations sort of adapt and change regularly to whatever's happening in the marketplace. But more now we're focusing on sort of the leadership and enterprise changes and sort of team coaching to help people sort of navigate different personality traits, things like that. So yeah, so we are, so that's what we do really. We help organizations be better places to work.
Thank you, Simon. Just before Simon starts to tell us more about his work and indeed his new book on the topic, I just want to share a little bit more about why we at SEAC are so interested in this. And apologies for those joining from outside Thailand, but just to give some local context for those who are joining, I don't know if anybody who's joining from Thailand saw this survey, this IDC Workday survey that was reported in the Bangkok Post quite recently. And it was looking at digital agility across Asia Pacific markets, and it picked out 9 markets. And as you can see, the worrying thing from the point of view of people like us working in Thailand is that Thailand came in ranked 9th out of the 9 countries that they looked at. Now, we might ordinarily expect Thailand to come behind more developed economies like like Korea and Singapore, Australia, New Zealand. But the fact that it's coming in behind Malaysia and coming in behind Indonesia is a significant concern for us. And it also tallies with what we see in the market and what we hear from our clients when we talk to them. They talk about all of the issues that you see highlighted in this survey, this lack of talent and this challenge of attracting and retaining and developing people with agility, not just digital agility, but general agility in the workplace to be able to adapt to this very fast-paced, very changing and dynamic environment that we're all working in. At SEAC, we really specialized on the people side of transformation, change, and agility. So we help people to build the new mindsets, to build the new leadership capabilities, to build the new soft skills around communication, collaboration, to develop new cognitive abilities. And we look to partner with people who really specialize in the area that can come in and bring some really focused development around some of the tool sets that are very, very useful around agility and particularly digital agility. So we've been working with MAQE here in Bangkok for quite a few years now, and I'm very pleased with the impact that we're having with our clients working with them. So when Andreas said that he'd been in touch with Simon, we were of course very interested to learn more about perhaps this is another partner that we can work with Andreas and another great solution that we can help to bring and contextualize for Thailand. So that's really why we're very interested in this work today that Simon's going to talk about. I'd now like to just hand over to Andreas, who's also just going to spend a couple of minutes talking about MAQE and their interest in Simon's work.
Thanks, man. So again, yeah, so maybe continuing on the notion of geographic context a little bit. So again, for those of us calling in from abroad, apologies, but like Richard, I too saw this IDC Workday article putting Thailand in the lowest rank of this survey, and we can discuss how much value to put on these sort of corporate reports kind of things, but it is one data point to keep in mind. And unfortunately, I wasn't very surprised to see Thailand scoring poorly in this case. So I've been working in Thailand for the past 10 years in the technology innovation agile space. And I've noticed that there's a couple of rather large misconceptions about agility floating around. They're not necessarily limited to Thailand, but I've definitely seen them more here than I have seen that in my native Europe, for example. And so I thought I'd spend a little bit of time just talking about what they are. And so if we can go one more. There you go. So the first misconception, so to speak, is that agility is something that only concerns the IT department, and that and if you're not in IT, you don't have to care, and that is problematic to say the least. And if Richard, if you go one more, the second and related point to that is that agility is often misconstrued as being the same thing as agile practices, being agility and Scrum, agility and Kanban, agility and XP is the same thing. And neither of those things are true. Agility is about something much bigger than that. And if I can offer a definition, like you see on the screen here, I would say that agility is what allows an organization to, quote unquote, rapidly respond to environmental change by continuously reconfiguring how it works. So I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but that definition really hits home, I think, on this notion that agility, as defined here, is a much bigger thing than just product development, if you will. And if we take this definition to heart, it's quite clear that there's basically we can't leave any stone unturned in the organization. We have to look at our organizational structure, our compensation structure, how we make decisions, our approach to hybrid and remote work, etc. Because all of those things actually impact how we are able to respond to change and how we are able to keep our organization fit for purpose or fit for marketer. and so if we here in Thailand wants to sort of move up the ranking here, I think it's important that we stop thinking about Agile as quote unquote Scrum, and instead think of Agile as a mindset, a set of values that we need to imbue in the organization as a whole. And I'm sure Simon is going to talk more about that. So for my own part, I have pen and paper here ready, because I'm going to listen and learn, because Simon has a lot of experience that I fully intend to capture. But what I do know from Agile coaching is that these are change agents that we as leaders, managers, organizations can use to help us go from the command and control structures of old to the sense and response organizations that we need in this new world of work that we're moving towards, right? But here again, these misconceptions sort of rear their ugly heads, because a lot of times when you look at Agile coaching, again in the Thai context, you usually say that an Agile coach is an engineer and maybe a Scrum Master, but that is not the case. And an Agile coach can come from a variety of backgrounds. I know Agile coaches that have HR backgrounds, for example. They used to work as HR VPs, and their focus is more on the talent and organizational transformation part of the equation, right? So again, just to underscore this thing that agility is not only tech, it's not just Scrum. Those things are part of the bigger equation, but if we want to make change in the Thai context, we need to move away from that and embrace agility on the bigger, more comprehensive sense of the word. So that's my spiel. So over to you again, Richard.
Yeah, thank you, Andreas, and certainly strongly agree with everything you just said there. And something that we see very much in our clients is this notion that agility is something that concerns maybe a product development team or an engineering team, and is seen as something related to Scrum or Kanban rather than a wider organizational capability. And I think that's one of the reasons why perhaps Thailand is struggling, and explains this ranking that we see at the enterprise level. So like you, we're really looking forward to hearing from Simon about how we go from viewing agility as a very limited process-oriented team discipline to something that can really benefit enterprises. So with that in mind, let me introduce again Simon Powers. We're all looking forward to hearing what he's going to say this afternoon. He's literally just a few weeks ago published his book, Change, A Practitioner's Guide to Enterprise Agile Coaching. He has a tremendous amount of experience. He's the founder and CEO of Adventures with Agile. So without further ado, Simon, can I hand over to you?
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for a great introduction and a great setting of the scene of what's happening in Thailand. I'll also share my screen as well. And I'm hoping that this also will work straight away. Can you see my the main screen and not my notes and stuff?
Yes, it's working for you.
Yeah, cool, brilliant, great. So there's some great points there around the maturity of agility in Thailand, and that's really what I'm hoping to talk about, and what we offer to sort of help with that, to build that capability, in the organizations there, and also for anyone who might want to travel from other parts of the world as well to Thailand to learn about agility. So that's what we'll be talking about today. So I briefly introduced AWA earlier, but I just want to emphasize the mission that we have been on for this last decade. It's really, it can be summed up very simply. It's very high level, making working life better. And this all really started from my own dissatisfaction, really, with the workplace, which is which I'd been working in corporate life for sort of 20 odd years, and even though I don't look that old, still got some hair left. But working can be very challenging in the corporate life, and often the challenges don't come from the immediate workplace, the immediate tasks and problems that one gets faced with. It's more coming from the sort of cultural aspects of working in large organizations that are no longer set up for the problems that organizations are facing today. And this is really the first step of thinking about agility, is like, what are we actually trying to solve? What are our businesses actually in business for? And how do we optimize our businesses or our organizations for that challenge? And I want to really emphasize this because what we've seen across the world is a bit of a trap around doing agility for agility's sake. It's like, we want to be agile, we've got to do agile, are we doing the best practices, all these kind of things. And really what we're looking for is better organizations, better working life, better relationships with our customers, all of the core business elements that one would expect. We're looking to enhance those, not just do agile for agile's sake. So hopefully we'll sort of touch upon that in various parts of this talk. But really that's it's a big trap that I'm hoping that we will avoid in Thailand. Okay, so we mentioned the book. So the book, I'm not going to go too much into the book because I want to talk about what we're actually doing in Thailand, but it is a great introduction to the work that we've been doing here and in the UK and also across the world. And it covers a lot of the sort of thinking and the mindset shift that is really required to enable agility to work. And you can order this on any Amazon in the world. So if there's an Amazon that delivers in your part of the world, then you can order the book. So it just goes out across all of anywhere. And also, of course, there's Kindle, so a digital version. And at the moment, for the next sort of 60 odd days, you can actually get it for free. So until it ends, there's a 90-day thing you can set up to give your book away for free. So we're about probably 30 days into that. So if you don't want to pay for it, get in there quick, download it on the Kindle Unlimited. Okay, good. So this is the contents of the book. And like I said, I'm not going to go into this very much, but what you can see here by quickly skimming through the contents of the book, that this is a team-based coaching course. What we're looking at is it's across the entire organization. We're looking at how does this organization optimize around the best working conditions, the best way to optimize staff working so that we can optimize for our customers. And that's really the key. We're looking at it from a customer perspective, a sort of customer and then product perspective. And that, of course, as Andreas rightly says, includes more than just the IT department if we're really going to optimize our organizations for now and for the future ways of working. Okay, so we've seen this graphic. We've all had this in our slide deck. So I'm not going to go into this again, but what I will say is that Thailand, you're not alone. The journey which I am seeing in Thailand, from the discussions that we've had, from things in this article, from other research that I've done, it looks very much like the UK market was sort of a few years back, where people are focusing on team level agility. There is a focus on the frameworks such as Scrum, Kanban, and then eventually you may get things like SAFe, the Scaled Agile framework, or large-scale Scrum coming in off the back of that as people start to try to include more teams. And we've seen this in the UK, we've seen it in the US and in places in Europe. There is a natural journey that people seem to want to do. And I believe this is because the mindset of the organizations over the last 100 years has been very, it's been very process-led. How do we look outside of ourselves and create processes, frameworks, so that we can organize other people so that optimizing them. So it's like a bunch of experts who are optimizing the workplace for everybody else. And when this happens, that mindset of the expert who knows everything, the leader who is in the top of the hierarchy, is just re-emphasized back through the agile ways of working. And what happens is you get the same status quo, and you get new process, but it's nothing changes, and you get the same names, the same, the different job roles, but actually no improvements. And we've spent many years over in the UK battling with agility at an enterprise level and wondering why it's so hard. Why is it so difficult to make it work? And really what needs to happen is that a deep mindset shift in the way that we are seeing the problems that we're facing now in the workplace, and how we as people organize ourselves, build different types of relationships around those problems so that we're able to solve them in a different way. And what I'm hoping is that by introducing what we've learned in the UK and in Europe, and to some degree in the US, that we're going to actually miss out that dead end in Thailand, which is to focus on these big scale frameworks, which actually don't give the benefits of which they seem to on the label. And I'm hoping that we can skip that and save several years of organizations struggling to achieve something which is necessary but seemingly unobtainable by some of the cul-de-sacs, the dead ends that we have unfortunately spent many years and many millions of pounds, dollars and euros exploring. Hopefully we can skip some of that wasted energy and time in Thailand. And that's kind of what I'll sort of be taking you through. So this great big set of text here on the screen, absolutely not expecting you to read that, and I'm certainly not going to be reading through it for you, but these are the learning outcomes that IC Agile has created for the 2 certifications of which we'll be exploring when I come to Thailand. So to put this in context, the purpose of this webinar is to sort of introduce this concept of enterprise agility, but also to introduce myself coming over in February now to run a week-long course in Bangkok, to which we call it a boot camp, but it's really 5 days of experiential learning about the enterprise space. How do we optimize the whole organization using things from agility, from lean, from psychology, from leadership? All of these different ingredients are going to come together in a week-long training course, which is backed by these learning outcomes here that we see on the screen, which all in all gives the participants, once you've completed this course, not only the certification, but the knowledge and hopefully the ability to go back into the organization to really start looking at what is it that we need to change, what practical elements do we need to change to shape up our organizations to better deal with the problems that we face today. And so it is both experiential and very practical. So this big long list of things really here are, it is a huge topic, and but what we've done is we've managed to take some of the real practices which really work in each one of these areas and condense this into a set of sort of a step-by-step approach, if you like, even if it's circular. Most things in Agile are circular, so that we do a bit, we learn a bit, we move on, we change a bit. And it's no different with organizational change. So over the years, AWA, myself, have created it's almost like a conversation with the organization, which takes you through these different elements of all the different aspects that one needs to help an organization on its way. And that's what we really cover in the week, a very clear approach, which is iterative, but step by step, encompassing all of these different and sometimes quite deep topics. So you may be wondering how IC Agile came up with this. So who sets this benchmark for what enterprise agility is, given that we have so many different organizations, so many different styles, different cultures around the world, different industries, all these different possible organizations that one may belong to, with all the different cultures. How can one enterprise agility possibly meet all of those different scenarios? Well, the way this was created was calling upon different people from different organizations, I being one of them, to work in a team in a community basis to really emphasize what have we learned so far, what are we doing, what works around the world, what have we seen. So we got people from all over the world to contribute to this, either indirectly or directly within the meeting. And it took actually several years to come up with what does it actually take. And of course, this is always evolving and changing. So we've just been through another round of changes with learning of the current learnings that are happening. So this is the latest version, which was updated in March. So it's continually evolving as we as human beings on the planet learn more about enterprise change, about us as human beings and how we're evolving inside. And so it's been a long ongoing adventure really to create these. And then of course, once we've worked with IC Agile and we've created these outcomes of which we believe that enterprise change agents, whether you be a leader, a coach, an agile coach, an HR person, or whoever you are who are looking to guide and make organizations better, these are the core learning outcomes, the core skills and capabilities that you need to be successful. And once we did that, obviously, then we have to actually build the course with all of our experience, which then took several more years of learning off the back of these learning outcomes. So really what you're seeing with this week-long course is many, many years of many people from all across the world pouring in their experience about what works in organizations and what doesn't, to come up with something which we think is very valuable and really will accelerate that learning on, to hopefully miss out some of those potholes and challenges along the road that we've been through over the last few years. So do make notes and things, because there will absolutely be questions as well as at the end, and feel free to write questions in the chat as well, and we'll come to those at the back end of this talk as well. So I created this very, very simple model here, which sums up all those learning outcomes. This is my very high level view into actually what it takes. So you'll see in the middle here, there's this developing self as leader. And this is something that is very much overlooked in the early days of organizational change, is that this role of a coach or a change agent is a leadership role. It's not something to bolt on at the side. It's not a bottom-up transformation where some people doing Scrum decide that actually this is a great thing for the organization. It is absolutely necessary for the organizational change person or team of people to be in leadership positions or have leadership abilities. And so often this role doesn't come from the senior management teams, from the board of directors, but actually comes or hired in or grown up from somebody in the organization who then rapidly has to develop themselves as a new new ways of thinking about leadership and about themselves. So an example is in our traditional hierarchical organizations, which is certainly where I think many of the organizations are in Thailand, and they certainly are in the UK still, and across Europe and the US. The world still sees very much hierarchical top-down organizations. Now, why is this a problem? Why is this an issue? And there's nothing wrong with hierarchy in its sense. It's how the hierarchy solves problems. How do we solve the problems of today? And what we do know is that as the markets, as our organizations get more and more complex, as the problems we're solving in the world are more complex, whether this be products and services or whether it be the social challenges that we face today, these problems require deep knowledge. They require deep skill sets, and the combination of those different skill sets make the bulk of the knowledge, the bulk of how to solve these problems at the point of work. They're not in the management chain. So knowledge workers typically know more about their job, their day-to-day, than their managers do, which is very different than the production line factory that was seen sort of in previous generations. So if all the knowledge and all the expertise and the day-to-day workings of how we do our business is at the worker level, then passing decisions back up the hierarchy means that things get approximated and we lose some of that knowledge at the working edge. And that loss of that knowledge in decision making both takes too much time and means that we end up coming up with suboptimal solutions. And so what one of the big moves to work towards working with agility is really to enable decision-making, safe decision-making with guardrails to make sure that we haven't got chaos, safe decision-making at the point of work. So this was pioneered in Japan in the late 50s, 60s and 70s with Toyota manufacturing. Oh, I've got a visitor coming in. I have a cat. Let me just let him out. Oh, we never know what's going to happen next. There's always something unexpected about to happen. And what we need to do in our organizations is adapt to that unexpected situation. This is what agility is, the ability to adapt. So if we want to do that quickly, if we want to solve these complex problems, we need to be able to make decision-making closer to the point of work. And for that, we need a different type of leadership. And that's really what we're growing. We can't lead this from the place of this expertise. I know best about your job. Got to change. So the first way to do that is really developing ourselves as leaders, changing that mindset and really growing that capability to think differently. So that's really the big one in the middle, because when you come on the class, when you come on the week-long course, it's not just about learning some stuff, because quite frankly, that's not going to work. To enable the stuff that you do learn, there's got to be a mindset shift. And often, I teach in organizations when we go in that actually transformation doesn't happen out there. Transformation actually happens in here. And that's the biggest shift. So that's why that's big, and it's in the middle, because coming on the course really does get you to think differently about yourself, about the relationships you have, and about the work we're building. So the other four elements around enterprise agility, the competencies, as well as developing self, is we'll start actually on the right-hand side here, developing leadership. So as I hope that from the things that I've said, we can see that there does need to be a slightly different style of leadership, one that nurtures and grows an environment such that people feel safe to make decisions, not only safe by, feeling courageous to stick your hand up and have an opinion which maybe isn't so popular, but also safe within the guardrails around decision making so that people can't make too big a decision or send the company off in the wrong direction. It really is about managing risk with sensible decision making at the point of work. And so that requires a different way of thinking, which means that this role really does need to understand leadership, the fears of leadership, the worries of leadership, and the responsibilities of leadership to enable an organization to thrive and succeed. So I'll zip round. I'm going a bit of an odd direction, but I'll go up to guiding the change process. So human beings, despite contrary belief, actually don't fear change. There's a lot of things that saying people fear change, and I don't believe that. I think that what people fear is being changed. People don't like to have change forced upon them and told how they're going to work, what they're going to do, and how their lives are going to be run. But actually, people embrace change. We change all the time. Every organism, be it from the smallest microbe to a large corporate enterprise, has to change or it will die. That's the fundamental nature of living in an entropy-based world. We have to change or we will die. So we're used to change. Human beings change all the time. So how do we guide a change process without forcing people to change, forcing people to do something they don't want to do? And also we have to make sure that that change process takes into account all of that knowledge, which we're talking about, the way that people do work. So the guiding the change process, there's a lot of elements in that. How do we make that plan? How do we make that roadmap for moving our organizations to be more fit for purpose in today's world? So part of that, going down to the bottom here, guiding organizational agility. So you may remember me saying at the beginning of this talk that we don't do Agile for Agile's sake. And this is a really big problem in the organizations. Most organizations embracing enterprise agility get stuck in the trap of measuring how agile are we. The moment we start measuring how agile are we, then the behaviors all go to make us more and more agile. And that may or may not be the right thing for the organization. What we really want to be measuring is how effective are we at delivering the outcomes to our customers, our citizens, our sponsors, and is that the right thing that we're delivering? So it's business metrics that we're really looking for, not how agile are we. So guiding the organizational agility, using the tools of agility, some fantastic things in the world of agile and lean, which can really be used effectively. But when do we use them? How do we measure them? And how do we apply them in the pursuit of making better businesses? And then finally, coaching range. So this is part of the mindset shift and the normalization of the new way of working. So you may have heard of the term agile coach or enterprise coach. So what does that really mean? What is a coach? And this is still in the early journeys here in the UK and in Europe, because people see coaching as different things. We're all used to sort of seeing coaches as sports coaches, where the coach has had the experience of playing football or rugby or some other sport, tennis, and they've gone through that journey, and now they're going back to impart their wisdom to other tennis players or football players. And so that's the type of coach that we're used to seeing on our TV screens every time there's some big tournament or big match. Whereas that is actually only one type of coaching. There are actually a whole range of different types of coaching, and learning about what a coach is, what those different ranges are, and how they can be applied to enabling people to change the way they think and the way that they see those the way that we see our organizations running is really part of this journey of agility. What really is a coach? It's not that coach on the football field. It's something else. But what does that mean? And how do we get the balance right between telling people how our organization should run and really helping build an environment so that people can figure it out for themselves with the guidance of the expertise of having done this many times before? So there's a big shift there in the way that we see this role, emphasizing on this idea of professional coaching and bringing in this sort of coaching element. And that's something which we cover very deeply on the course. What's this balance? What's this balance like? So these elements go together. And if you think about it, develop self. How do we develop others? How do we build an incredible environment for the workplace? How do we use the right agile tools in that workplace to enhance business? And how do we coach people to have better relationships with themselves, with others, and the work? And if we do that, we create a much better culture, which then iterates around on ever improving, ever better places to work. And that's kind of the summation of these competencies. So again, any questions, anything that you are thinking about, anything you're unsure about, do write them down, stick them in the chat, and we'll come to them at the end. Especially things like, well, so in Thailand, we're team-based coaching. How do we get to thinking like this? How do we, where do we go from here? Okay, so this is just a quick, literally just a sort of throwed on the page of a few of the models which we cover either in the book or on the course. And there's many, many more. So you'll see that the content is actually very rich. There's a huge amount of depth in the course. There's it's very visual. We also are very experiential. We'll play lots of sort of learning games, which are specifically, oops, wrong way. So here's photos from some of the previous courses. So you'll see it's very interactive. You're not sitting behind a screen the whole time. In fact, we don't even use slides anymore. This was an old version of the course where there's slides. It's all very hands-on and experiential, so that the things that you learn really are useful and can be applied directly. So tons of models from a conceptual perspective, tons of interactivity from an embodiment perspective, so that you can really take on what you need to do. There's a big mindset shift to enable you to think differently, see your own role differently, and also how you interact with leaders. There's quite a bit around not pushing ideas, but how do you get your ideas across? How do you enable change without pushing and making and selling? We really want to be inclusive and inviting. So there's elements around how do we behave to really bring about the organizations that we're hoping for. So that's kind of the course. That's the sort of competencies and the approach. As I think Richard was mentioning earlier, it's about the people, and AWA has always focused on a people-first approach. So it is about growing ourselves, about growing others, so that we can build the right environments that people can collaborate and solve the business problems of today themselves. But how do they do that? How do we create the facilitation? How do we create the right tools so that people can do that for themselves? We're not looking to be the experts and come in and solve the world with some single framework or some single one approach that works for everybody. It doesn't work like that. If it did, great. Fortunately, it doesn't, or maybe fortunately, because one thing that we have learned through doing this work is that we are all unique. We are all individuals. And when we combine our uniqueness with others, then we get something very magical. We get something which is also unique, but something greater than ourselves. And what we're really trying to do is build organizations that leverage upon that amazing uniqueness, amazing different cultures that we have, but also combines into something which is more than the sum of its parts. It's something which can be magical, it can be incredible. Work can be something which we not only enjoy, but we love doing. We look forward to Monday morning. We look forward to making a difference in the world. And that is what we're all about. That's what this course is hoping to do. It's hoping to enable you to build that type of organization that's worth getting up for, that's worth doing something. So details of the course. This is, I'm not going to read all this. It is the certified course. These are the two certificates from IC Agile, the ICP-N and ICP-CAT. Both of those certificates are with, if you do the course, you turn up, you do all the exercises, there's an assessment at the end, which will be totally explained. It's within the course. There's no exam at the end. It's all about knowledge acquisition and demonstrating that knowledge throughout the class. Then there are these two certificates which you will gain, which show that you have acquired the knowledge that has been taught. There is also a discount code for anyone who wants to join. It's this one in red, EACB 10, and that gives 10% off the money for the course, the course fee. Sorry. And if you want to sign up for that, you can come onto our website, and if Charlie or somebody would put the URL for the course in the chat, that would be great. So the way IC Agile is structured is they have these knowledge acquisition courses, which is what this course is. This week-long course covers both of these certifications, which are the only certifications for the enterprise agility that they do. And then there is also, off the back of that, there is also an expert program, which is a cohort program, which is purely online, which goes over a 9-month period. And that we only run that once a year. The next one will be next September now. But if you come on the course, you learn the things you like what you see, then this is an option for you as well, which is not only knowledge acquisition, but it's a cohort which helps you in the organization embed what you've learned and be supported through a 9-month period of actually doing the change in the organization, of all the challenges, all the resistance, all the stuff that comes up in the organization. You're supported by a cohort of people who are also doing it in their organization and the AWA faculty to enable you to get the most knowledge and support that you can to enable those changes in your organization using the things that you've learned on the course. So so there's, but the program that we're running in Thailand is the week-long knowledge acquisition course, which is the ICP CAT and ICP ENT. So last slide, there's the book you can find on Amazon. You can join me on LinkedIn, Cy Powers, LinkedIn. And these are my two children waving goodbye from my presentation for the slides. And Thomas and Chester saying thank you for listening. So I'll stop the share. And if there are any questions, I think there might be some in the chat, but if there's any questions that you have, do just raise a hand or shout out, and I'll do my best, or we as a team will do our best to answer those questions. Cool. So any questions?
So thanks, Simon. I did have a question of on top there, if you don't mind.
Of course.
So
yeah.
I'll just read it for you. So being in Thailand, there's a growing interest of new and better ways of working here, which is partly why we're doing this, right? But I've also noticed that whenever we talk to C-level boardroom, there's a tendency to think that, oh, the rest of the organization needs to change, but we're fine, you know. And it can be very difficult to convince them otherwise, so to speak. Any pro tips you have to share for how to go about doing that?
Yeah, thank you, Andreas. It's a fantastic question, and one that does come up a lot, and one that we've had to deal with. So the first thing, there's a couple of things. The first thing is about meeting people where they're at, and coming to them with a sense of equality. And at the end of the day, it's their organization. They're running the organization. It's the senior leadership team. And there's a certain respect for that, the responsibility they have. They have certain needs, certain things that they're perhaps responsible for that maybe we're not aware of. So we need to be aware that they're holding things together, which are perhaps not visible to us. So the first thing is, if we're going to be suggesting or making changes, then we need to make sure that they are able to express those things. The idea that somebody else is going to make this change and they are separate than that is one that comes up a lot. And I often ask leaders, I was going to close my door, cut some noise out. I often ask leaders, is what you do in the day-to-day affecting the organization? Do you have any, is what you do have any effect on the culture? Does it have any effect on the way that people are working? And very rarely do they say no. Because if it's like, if they're offering no effect and they don't do anything in their day-to-day that is actually having any impact on the organization, one begs the question of what actually they're doing and what's the point of their role. So nobody ever says that. It's like, yes, of course, what we do has an impact. And so then the question comes, well, if you carry on doing the same thing, how are we expecting anything to change? So do we need to keep doing the same thing and expect different results, or do we need to do something different and get different results? And we have there's a saying here in England: if you keep doing the same thing and expect different results, it's kind of the definition of madness. And so really what we're looking for is, if we want something different, then we need to do something different. And often I often say, how is doing the same thing going for you? And often it's like, well, people generally don't say, oh, well, it's all perfect, because if it's all perfect and it's all working really well and everything's great with the organization, fantastic, we don't need to do anything. Good luck. But often that's not the case, and there is something that needs changing. And so are they going to make that change or not? And so something in leadership has to change to enable this to work. And generally that kind of level of speaking, bringing that sort of level of equality, that level of trust, and speaking in a kind way, but explaining carefully in that way, generally has some desired effect. I don't know if that helps or answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. On the flip side, to your last point now, I've noticed before, a lot of times too, that the coach or the consultant in this case comes in as saying, I know better, right? Which is the worst thing you can do, right? Because as you said, these are people, they run big organizations, like they know their business better than anyone, right? So a bit of humility goes a long way.
Yeah, and we cover this on the course, actually, this idea of a hierarchy within a relationship. So if I come in thinking that I know best, then that's a hierarchy. It's a relational hierarchy. If I come in not daring to question the senior management's decisions, if I come in not daring to stand up for what I believe, that's also a hierarchy, but the opposite way. And so what we discover is that relationship, real true relationship, is when we find a point of equality, when we narrow that hierarchy so that we're actually on the same level. When that happens, something magical happens, something opens up, and we start entering into a relationship. And relationship really is the only way that we can do business. Relationships is business. And so learning how, and this is really the growing self part of that big circle in the middle. How do we do that? How do we go in there when perhaps leaders themselves are arrogant and wanting a bigger hierarchy? They've grown, they've worked up all their lives, they've got to the top, they want to maintain this hierarchy. So how do we as change agents enter in to a relationship system that is being held that these people are higher than we are, and yet we know that is impossible to make change from that position? So growing a self to enable to be in that space, stand in that space, and balance that out without causing conflict is a deep skill, and we cover that on the course. Cool, brilliant question. Does anyone else have a question? Is there anything else in the chat if anyone wants to quickly?
There is a question in the chat, Simon, from Lise, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, apologies if I'm not, who's from Copenhagen. She's asking any prerequisites for participation in the bootcamp, and she would also like to know if you have more dates for 2023, preferably in Europe or ideally Copenhagen.
Yeah, so the prerequisites really are that you are working or have some kind of access to someone with influence who can make enterprise changes. It's not so much a prerequisite. You still get stuff out of the course, but then you wouldn't be able to use it. So if you really want to make use of what there is on the course, then you need to be in a position where either you're in a position of power that you can make changes to the way that people work, which ideally by the time you've been on the course will be about creating a space and leveraging the power of people, or you need to at least be a coach or have some influence into that space, because if that's not there, how can you make change? In terms of other dates, come to Thailand. It's hot. It's the winter. Why would you not want to be in Thailand? It's a holiday, if anything else. Yeah. So I'm fully intending to spend an extra week in Thailand, enjoying the lovely weather in the middle of our horrible weather in Europe. But if that's not possible, then we will be running other programs. We are running other programs. We will be releasing dates for things in the UK and in Europe just throughout the year. Yeah.
So to jump in, Simon, there's the schedule for 2023 is going to be released on Monday. So we can send that over to you, Lisa.
Yes.
We can send those to you on email, and we'll put them on the website as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
It's also worth mentioning that we do have a different price for Thailand, and it is less than the price in Europe. So if you were looking to fly and come to the Thailand course, it probably wouldn't be actually that much more, maybe a little bit more, but probably not that much more than if you do it in Europe, which does mean that your flights, hotels, holiday, as well as the serious course, absolutely serious course, but also
okay, so we'll
to go to Thailand.
Great.
Cool, brilliant.
I have a lot of questions, Simon. Before I go into mine, I'll just ask any from the people that are joining us this afternoon. Any other questions for Simon? You can either just speak out or put them in the chat, whatever's easiest.
Yeah, feel free to come off mute and speak.
In that case, I'll jump in and ask one of my questions. I mentioned one of the areas we're really interested in is leadership mindset. So I really poked up when you were talking about that, and I agree with what you were saying, that it's really important for leaders to recognise where people have a deeper knowledge of their job than they do, and to devolve that decision-making authority as close to the point of the decision as possible. But my question is, do you have much experience working in cultures like Thailand and many Southeast Asian countries that are socially very hierarchical, and in the workplace, the leader is always the most experienced person, and the leader's role is to make the decisions? It's what everybody expects, including the staff. So it's not just the leader that needs to change their mindset, it's the staff that need to change their mindset to become much more confident, much more independent, show much higher levels of initiative. And it also speaks to the culture of the organization around failure, and how failure and mistakes are treated and tolerated as well.
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. And how do the things translate from one culture to another? So we have done a fair bit of work in India. We are starting to do work in China, and South Africa is also quite hierarchical in nature like that. So there has been, we have done work in cultures that are typically more hierarchical, where the routes of communication are perhaps more formal across the throughout the hierarchy. So for example, if I want to talk to the person over there, I need to talk to my boss, and their boss needs to talk to their boss, and then their boss can tell them that it's okay, and then we can talk together. So we have a fair amount of experience in working like that. It does make things a bit slower than if there's more of a free rein, but it just means that we need to be a bit more formal and a bit more careful about the way that we are approaching a change. And there are some huge benefits, as well as sort of perhaps things which one might consider negative, in terms of collaboration across different skill sets, collaboration about flow, and that is respect as well. So there is what I do see is that there is a certain amount of respect in Asia, which you don't actually see here in Europe, and there are sort of protocols that people follow. And we're looking to honor those kind of things rather than just come in and say, hey, look, you know, the way we're doing things in the West is the best. You know, it's like that would absolutely be the antithesis of the approach that we would take. And it's about honoring what's there, and really looking at how do we leverage those brilliant people and optimize in some kind of flow so that we can. So innovation is one thing, and also flow is the other thing of how do we get work out to customers? How do we get work out to our citizens, depending on what organization we're talking about, in a timely manner, and iterate through and learn from that? And how do we innovate as well? And in organizations that are very formal, very hierarchical, then how do we set up a space? What kind of culture can we set up? What kind of things that are acceptable? And there's certain sort of things that we can do to help with that. But it might be a sort of more slower approach, a more respectful approach. And there's a certain amount of trust that has to be brought up in the process to enable that that sort of rapid, everyone working together, get things out approach. There's a certain amount of trust there as well. Yeah, so I don't know what else to say about that at the moment.
No, thank you. Another question I have, if nobody else wants to jump in here. Actually, it was two questions. I think I can put them together. One was about the organizational size, and is there a sort of an ideal size for implementing Enterprise Agile, and what's the biggest enterprises that you've worked with? And which also leads into a second question about establishing a critical mass. So how many people from an organization need to go through this program, and are there any critical roles or levels or of people that need to be involved in order for this thing to actually gain and sustain its momentum? I would say when you when you've completed the training and you're back at work?
Yeah, brilliant questions. So size of organization. So we've worked with organizations that are sort of 20, 30 people, all the way up to organizations which are over 100,000 people. So large banks in the UK tend to be over 100,000 people, and we've done a fair amount. Most of my career actually has been spent in the banks, for better or worse, and working for, so doing very large scale things like that. Optimal size. I mean, I personally love working with organizations that are sort of about 1,000 people, 1,000 to 10,000. Because you get much more access to leadership in smaller companies, and really the bulk of this work is having at least 2 leaders in the senior management team who get it, who are really trying to move the organization forwards. And this also lends itself to the second question, which is what's the critical mass? Built into the program and the approach that we take is this idea of internal marketing. So we're looking to pull people in because I want some of that. I want to work like that. That looks interesting. That looks fun. That looks productive. That looks successful. So we want to pull people in. So part of the process is this internal marketing, sharing what we've learned. Being rewarded inside organizations is a critical element when you come to what is success and failure look like. What do we reward? If we keep rewarding only successful wins that are, like for example, customer acquisition or success in whatever marketplace you're in, if we only reward those things, then that becomes the measure of success. Whereas what we're actually looking to reward is the ability to experiment and try in a safe way. So if I try this incredible new innovative thing, which could make the company millions, but it doesn't work, and the way that it doesn't work doesn't cause any harm or much loss at all, it was totally worth investing in, and it didn't work, but it could have been the next thing, that should also be rewarded, even though it didn't, the idea itself didn't take in the market, because then I'm willing to try again and again. And if I'm doing it in a safe way that I'm not costing the organization a risky amount, or I'm not risking reputation, or I'm not risking the integrity of any of the other systems, then why does it matter? We've got a certain budget to allow us to iterate through safe ideas that aren't going to put anything else at threat, because the 4th, 5th one may be the next Google, maybe the next, Airbnb or whatever it is. And so that's what we're really looking at how things are rewarded. And then the last part is, in terms of critical mass, is really about what leaders do we have on board more than that. I mean, scientifically, mathematically, you can plot it on a normal distribution curve, and you can see, Geoffrey Moore's work with crossing the chasm. There's roughly like sort of 20%. You need at least 1 in 5 people who are working in an agile way mathematically. But actually, if you've got a couple of good leaders who are really behind it, and you get one area working really well, and that becomes a poster child of other parts, it can be a lot smaller than that, a lot smaller if you've got the right leadership backing with the right mindset and the work. So that's kind of what I would say about that.
Thank you.
Cool, brilliant questions. Any other questions, I guess? Before
Yeah, we have a question from Robert in the chat. You mentioned there won't be much in terms of slides. Will there be much in terms of takeaway materials after finishing the course to recap any of the content?
Yeah, brilliant. So we don't operate with slides at all, not even one slide on the course. We have a manual, which you have. So it's a big, I don't even have one here. No, I don't. There's a big, thick manual, which has, I don't know, well over hundreds of pages of models, or the workbook. You work in it as you go through, you make notes. We also have a learning environment, which is a university grade learning environment with lots of additional materials with models in it, downloadable things, videos, all those kind of things as well. So there's a huge amount of things that you take away from the course, both experientially, but also as physical. And of course, the manual is also electronic as well as a big bound book.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Cool.
Any more questions for Simon?
Well, all I will say is that if you do end up coming to Thailand, not only will you learn a lot, but we will have a fantastic time. We tend to get very bonded in the class. We're going through a lot of mindset stuff. We do a lot of activities, and you will meet people who most likely will become your friends. So warning, if you don't like friends, maybe don't come. But if you want to meet people who are likely to turn out to be your friends, people who are likely to support you for months on end afterwards, we have a Slack channel which everybody is invited to and joins. So the class has their own Slack part in it that you can communicate after the event, but also you'll join over 1,000 other coaches who have been through this course, and there's plenty of places to ask questions to a wider group, which will also support you, and people make friends. They even meet up again in different parts of the world after the course. It really is quite a deep bonding experience as well. Cool.
And it's a lovely time to come to Thailand as well. Really lovely weather.
Yeah, exactly. So I should be looking forward to that, and also obviously Thai food. If you like Thai food, who doesn't like Thai food? Exactly. Cool, brilliant. So I think that's probably all the questions. So thank you everyone for being here. Yeah.
Indeed.
Awesome. So is there anything that we wanted to do to wrap up, or are we ending now? How do we want to sort of end? Just so thank you to everyone, I guess.
So anybody interested in joining the program in Bangkok, Simon, what do they do next?
Yeah, so there is a URL which I think is in the chat, and if you click on that, the Adventures with Agile URL, they can go there and click on the Thailand course and go through there's a very simple form to fill out, buy the ticket and come along. Basically, it's all the details are there when you sign up, where it is, all the rest of it I see.
Charlie's just reposted it in the chat, so fill that one.
And don't forget there is the discount code as well, which is, I'm not sure how long that lasts for, but it's there as well. Great. Awesome. Great. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for hosting me. And I hope to see you all there.
Thank you. And thank you, Simon.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Interesting.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Until next time.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Yeah.
See you soon. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.